of stressful, but overall, we're getting through it. It's pretty fine, I guess. Alright. Now, I just watched a video which it reminded me of a topic I wanted to cover. The video is by Millennia Thinker, and it's called NEET Life. Now, you might be wondering what a NEET is, and this isn't to be confused with I believe it's a medical aptitude test in India called the NEET test. This is an acronym, NEET. What I believe it stands for is not in education, employment, or training. And essentially, it's someone over the age of 18 or 20 who lives at home with family, or in some cases, they're able to get on like disability or social security, things like that. And they don't really work or even leave the house in some cases. And you might be wondering, oh well, are you making this video to attack people or something? And not at all. I've actually been in a situation where I've had to do NEET existence a few times. And that video, the NEET Life one, it really made me think and like hope that people who are going through that are able to kind of fix their situation. Now, basically, the video shows what happens with the character who graduates from high school, but the thing is, they don't focus on their studies. They just kind of put their hands in the air and say, oh, I don't care about this. You know, this isn't important. And they graduate, and then instead of going and like finding work or something after high school, they just kind of like turn inward on themselves in like an extreme version of introversion. And they don't leave the house or do anything, and you see them getting older in the video. You know, they delete their social media accounts, they stop socializing at all, even online. They basically just watch YouTube all day or sit in their room, you know, living off of their parents, I guess. And eventually in the video, the character who became the NEET, he's older, he's probably in like his 30s or 40s, and he sees one of his school friends who, at the time, was sort of doing like the I don't care about school thing either, but he's got a family and all of this, and then the NEET guy sees him and tries to basically avoid eye contact. And then he goes home and tells himself that like everything's okay. And that's a pretty disturbingly accurate version of it. So I can tell you of a couple times that I was a NEET. So the first time was January of 2020. Now, shockingly, there are people born now, like kids, that don't even remember COVID at all. But I was about 25 when COVID-19 hit. And before it got big, like this is back when it was still in like Wuhan, I remember I saw in the news that it was getting worse. I read about how it's spreading, and I was like, this is going to be bad. And I was the first person to wear one of those masks. Obviously not an N95 or whatever, but just like a mask to protect myself from germs. And when I went into work and I wore that mask, I got the weirdest looks from people. And then in February, I left that job. I'd been there for almost a decade, made no progress, felt like I was just living in stasis, doing nothing. And then COVID hit. I didn't really have too much income at this time and was living with family through COVID. And over time, it went from things looking good to, except for like the obvious, it just kind of broke down after a while. If you're living with family, they get really angry with you. And now I had a little bit of income, but not enough to do anything. I could basically pay my bills, and that was it. And I was in a situation where I lived with like verbally abusive family. And it's like I can understand if you are angry at your family, if you feel like they aren't doing anything to better their situation. But to insult them and constantly come down on them and like like a negative way and try to make them miserable. It seems kind of like messed up to me. It's okay to be, angry at family or whatever, but you don't have to be insulting them 24/7, and I know that's something that a lot of NEETs have to go through, but so for a long time, for like 2 years during COVID, I was just kind of living with family, spending money on just like bills and whatever little crap like snacks or whatever, and you do the same thing over and over and over again. You withdraw from people. You go inward to a toxic degree, to the point where you start actively pushing out situations where you can talk to people and potentially better yourself or your mental health, because if you stay in your own head for too long, you start to get funny. I really think that even though there's plenty of upsides to introversion, I don't think that really hardly anyone can just live their whole life by themselves and get out unscathed mentally. And yeah, the thing you'll notice is days start to go by and they start to blend together to the point where you can't tell what day it is. And with that, your memory starts to get kind of bad. You start to forget more and more things, and eventually you find yourself in a rut where you don't even bother getting out of bed. You just think, well, whatever, it was another day, nothing to look forward to. And it can be kind of a depressing mindset. And the thing is, like I said, I tried to get, well, I didn't mention this, but I was trying to get work, but nothing was happening, because this is also when it was really, really bad, and I think it's probably gotten worse due to AI. But it was difficult to find work, and this is during the pandemic too. And so you'd be trying, and then you'd have people coming at you from all sides. And for me, I wasn't content just existing. I wanted to better myself because I was getting older, and I felt older, and it was like, well, I want to make some improvements in my life. And it was difficult. I must have gone through 5 different jobs in that time period. Just the demands and everything due to COVID going on, it was intense. And I imagine for a lot of NEETs, you don't have family that's I know they're supporting you financially, but emotionally they're just not there for you. And the thing is, after high school or university, if you're able to go to that, if you don't keep those people that you met in your life, you start to drift away from them, and eventually the only person you have is yourself. And it's not healthy. Yourself for internet forums or things like that. Basically, if it's not an echo chamber and some sort of political thing or whatever, it's either that or you find yourself doing the same thing day in, day out, every single day. And it's they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. I know that's not what insanity actually is, but if you think about it, that does kind of relate pretty well. And it relates especially well to the NEET situation, because if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, sitting in bed or not leaving your house, how can you expect things to improve? And during this time, I actually got pretty heavily into manifestation and things like that. And it's something that I would love to actually be real, but I just don't think that you can really manifest something into your life. It more so functions as a way to kind of energize yourself. And in that way, you can move yourself slowly towards where you want to be. But the way that some people take manifestation is that you just think about something and don't make any changes, and then it comes to you. But that's not the case. It's a form of mental conditioning is what manifesting really is, at least from my point of view. And I would do this when I was basically being a NEET. Eventually the family arguments got so bad that I was living in my car Actually, that's when I discovered some really good ASM artists like Tiara the Whalo. When I was trying to sleep in my car and I couldn't because I had nowhere to go. And I couldn't go back home. Or house, as I call it. This surrounding is my home. It took me a long time to move out of my family's house, but back then when I lived with them, it was like that. And I had no girlfriend. I had no friends. It was just me. And you go loopy after a while. Like, it's not healthy. It got to the point where, like, I really started getting, like, sick. And I think that for a lot of NEETs, it's like a complacency that leads to a mental illness. And I'm sure not in all, because some people really do like being alone. And some people, see, I want to say a lot of people who become NEETs at some point are neurodivergent. And the thing is, if you're neurodivergent, you tend to get shit on if you ask for help. And I think that's wrong. I also think it's kind of, that was weird. I also think it's kind of wrong that, like, people are open to helping, say, neurodivergent kids or whatever, right? But if you're a neurodivergent adult and you go to those same people who are willing to help younger people to learn to acclimate to social situations or to better themselves, you get laughed at or you get treated like shit. And it's like, well, why? Why are you willing to help younger people but not people who are older and struggling? Do you not understand that if you help those younger people, or rather, if you don't help those younger people, they become the very people who you despise? If we're trying to, and I'd like to have a more inclusive society, right? But I feel like a lot of the people who talk about that don't actually want to do that. They just kind of want to do a savior complex thing. And I think a lot of NEETs, or people who fall into it, could have benefited from having more stable adults around them to help guide them, because they've been through it, especially if it's someone neurodiverse, right? They've been through it and they can help someone who is younger, who is struggling socially, and who after high school or university just kind of fades away. Everyone else goes this way and they just kind of take this path. And like, nobody wants to be sitting at home in their late 20s, 30s, living with family, getting insulted every day, feeling like a burden, or worse, doing it for so long that they no longer care. Because the only way to truly fail yourself that I can find is to give up on yourself. I mentioned Tiara the Whalo a lot, but he talks about in his videos how there is no giving up. And I mean, choosing to do nothing in a situation like that where you're living and just kind of not even living, you're just kind of existing. It is making a choice. I really do feel like a lot of the people who get stuck in that rut, and I was one of them, they can benefit by just putting in a little bit more effort. And that could be anything. That could be just switching to like say if you were too sedentary. Right now I need to start doing this again. What I did was I switched to a 1 meal a day diet. I started working out. I got like 10-pound weights and 15-pound weights and would just lift them every other day. I started to actually build muscle mass and feel more confident. And I would also, I would ask my doctor. It took them a while to figure out a proper medication for me. And I started to get like actual health complications, something called Hashimoto's. And it caused me to lose so much weight. But the negative side was the fact, and I wasn't, keep in mind, the 1 meal a day was helping me to lose weight. But the Hashimoto's kept on making me lose weight and caused me severe anxiety. To the point that I had to take a medication called methimazole, and also something called, what was it? It's like levothyroxine, or that might be the same thing, but it's something they give you later when it goes hypo. Hyper makes you skinnier. Hypo causes you to get larger, which I'm dealing with now. But what I did, I was like, alright, listen, I've been doing this living in a room in my family's house thing for so long that like I can't take it anymore. You know, like there's no positive outcome if I don't put some effort into this. Some effort into self-betterment. Because like, for me, the goal is always to help others. But you have to help yourself in because of the anti-anxiety properties. For you, if you choose to and you're a NEET right now, it might be something else. But starting with the exercise does help. You have to set up, I apologize. Now, you need to set up a schedule for when you wake up every day, and you have to wake up at that time every day. You have to make it a point to do something. If you're someone who has trouble brushing your teeth, at least once a day, try to get into that habit. And also, check for tonsil stones, because those can cause bad breath that doesn't come from like dental stuff. You have to check your teeth. You have to make sure that your dental health is good. For me, like my front tooth, you can't see it. Like this one, it cracked and fell out. You need to love yourself. And it sounds corny, but it's true. You have to, because you have to invest in yourself like a business. And like, one thing I worry about is that maybe like I worry sometimes that it's too late. Yes, I was able to fix my situation, but what if it's too late and I just die or something? That would be horrible. But I mean, if I'm able to help someone else fix their situation a little bit sooner, then that's good. But listen, try to start setting goals for yourself if you're in need on a small scale, and then go up and up and up and up. Like, I've heard a lot about people who would like, either through anxiety or some other illness, they would like urinate in cups or something, like, you know, the whole piss bottle meme or whatever. That's actually a thing. But a lot of the times the people that do that are extremely depressed. So, if you do that, obviously stop doing that, because you need to have motivation to get up, to leave your comfort zone, right? Because if you stay in there forever, it'll become a tomb. You know what I mean? You have to try and get up and get out of there, because you can't grow if you stay stuck. It's like, I'm trying to think of something to relate it to. It's important, I'll put it this way, for you to set goals, anything, any sort of goal, even just to sleep like a little bit more regular, to, like I said, brush your teeth, to use the washroom regularly, like leaving the room, to go for a short walk every day, to just go outside. You can start with that. You can build your way up. I do think that medication has a lot to do with helping, but I think that someone could do it on their own too. But don't be someone who immediately assumes that all medication is evil. Of course, everyone can have an adverse reaction to something, but generally, medications are put out there to help people. I don't see what the point would be in someone putting out like an antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication with the express purpose of hurting someone, you know? And like, here's an example for you. Sometimes NEETs, like people who just are very isolated, I've heard of a lot of people believing they're being stalked by people. They call this gang stalking, where like they believe they're being surveilled. And there are some weird ones, like that guy who thought the police were after him, and then they found him with like a knife in his chest in his burnt down house. That is weird. Like, he had footage of a van in front of his house. That one I'll give you. But I actually have an experience of someone thinking I was gang stalking them from that job that I quit way back. So I was a janitor back then. I was going to, get the mop or whatever and start mopping. And this guy, we were both going down the same hallway. He turns around, he's like, "You following me?" I'm like, "Huh?" And then I pointed to behind him where the broom closet was. And he just gave me this kind of nervous look and went in the washroom. And it's like, dude, why would I be stalking you to the bathroom? Like, I'm wondering what's going through the guy's head. Like, is he that paranoid? And I guess so. And like, yeah, sometimes people get like, memed on or whatever, but in terms of someone actually stalking you, like a government body, like the fear of your phones being tapped and things like this, I honestly think this comes from the paranoia that isolation brings. Like, I'm not someone who goes outside and like, oh yes, I'm gonna go for a 15-mile hike with like 20 people and just, I love being around people. It's not like that. I am pretty introverted. I like my space, but too much of that can be a bad thing. Just like too much of anything. Like, you hear my stomach right now, it's because I have a piece of crap diet. And like, I drink stuff I shouldn't. I've got like my LPR and GERD and all that. And because of that, I sound like a frog half the time. Like, my stomach should literally have its own nickname. Like Pepe the stomach, I don't know. But, because it's a frog, so Pepe. But, do you get what I mean? Too much of anything can be a good thing, and that can even just be isolation. I'm really surprised that monks don't go insane more often. They must have extreme conviction. But yeah, to be alone can cause so many issues, and NEETs are, alone. They don't really go out, they don't socialize, and I really believe it's bad. Especially because it's like usually in their early 20s, and that's times when people should be getting out and doing stuff. I don't know how the world's gonna go because of like AI and all of that. And people literally, like, I know people would always say, oh, like people politically, and they'd be like, oh, immigrants are taking jobs and all this, and it's like, AI is taking jobs, like artificial intelligence, and I really believe that they need to get rid of that. Like, do you know what happens once people are rendered obsolete due to the fact that now they have AI doing things? Do you know what I mean? Is there going to be a lot of people who become NEETs? And if there's a lot of people who become NEETs, are they going to like develop issues mentally, or what's going to happen here? But the people who can like implement this stuff, they don't have to worry about the consequences of it. To everyone below that, their status, But I don't know. And like, you see a lot of memes like getting the cagey wagey. Wagey being like someone who works. But like, I don't know. I don't feel like I could personally really enjoy long-term being a NEET. And I was a NEET one more time because I got fired in 2022. And so I had to be a NEET, and that was brutal. The family ramped up on the insults. It was pretty much every single day, like, crying. It was not fun. But I managed to get out and try to better myself. And obviously it is a long process, but I'm just hoping that someone who's watching will be able to find that motivation within themselves to take that step, to decide, no, I can't do this anymore, I want to change, and to do it for themselves. So I know this video was really rambly or all that, but I really do have sympathy for people who find themselves in that situation, because I actually even mentioned before in a video that I was always the friend who was the third wheel, so eventually I just stopped talking to people, and I still don't. But it's a slippery slope, like, it's dangerous. You have to be sure to have some sort of positive people in your life, because if you're alone all the time, it just won't be any good for you. But this video wasn't super long, but I do have topics for Whisper Rambles that I wanted to get to, and I thought this one was very important, especially given like how the job market is now and all that stuff. There's going to be a lot more people who find themselves possibly being unemployed, and if you don't have an education or you're not able to get more money to start one, life can just become really miserable. But on that note, to anyone who's going through that right now, I wish the best for you, and I wish for things to turn around for you and for your life to get better. I hope that you don't always have to be like that and alone. I hope that things change for you so you're able to find happiness